Yeah, good morning, everybody. Now, today we'll start with our lesson. In our last class, we are discussing on how the end-to-end process services will be given and how a transport layer will play their role and how the different two protocols, the UDP and the TCP, will be there in that particular layer and how it will works based on the port addresses. First, we had discussed with an UDP, and later on we gone with a header format of an UDP, and UDP is an unreliable protocol which we have seen, and there will be an interval of time in that. And later on, we came to TCP, one of the most important transport protocol, that is transmission control protocol. So that particular protocol, how it will work, it's a reliable means acknowledgements will be there in that. So it will use the sliding window protocol and it will retransmit the packets, and then for a retransmission, so how it is going to work. First, what we have seen, so how a connection establishment and the connection disconnect will be done using a three-way handshake protocol that we had seen in a TCP. First, we had discussed the header format of a TCP, each and every field in that, how we have discussed the each and every field in that, the URG pointer field means urgent pointer field acknowledgement, and how the other things flags will be there, and how the sequence number will be used in that particular header format. That and all we had discussed. After discussing all that particular things, how an TCP will use the sliding window protocol to check either the particular segment or a packet has been reached to that end or not. If it has not reached, then how a retransmission should be done based on a acknowledgement received. So that also we had discussed. And coming to the next, the retransmission algorithms which we had discussed. First, we have discussed in a normal thing how a silly syndrome window will place a problem, that is a small segments which will be there here and there in a network. So how to solve this particular small segments problem based on MSS, that is maximum size segment variable, which will be taken into the consideration. So there we have seen like that how SLE syndrome will works. Yeah, if data is there from an application protocol, it will write the segments. That means the TCP will wait until the segments has been the bytes has been written into that particular segment. Sorry. Written on that particular segment. So once it has been written on that particular segment, means whatever bytes has been written into that particular segment, once it fills the MSS, so then automatically the segment will be taken forward. Assume that if data is not there, that much data is not there, so only a limited data is there which is less than that MMS, there is no other way it has to send. So that small segment of data will be there here and there in a network, and it will collide with, means it will be same like in a control messages, it will become a problem. So that to solve this, we go for a Nagel's algorithm. In the Nagel's algorithm, we had discussed how we will wait until the segment gets filled, means the bytes has been written from the application layer. The Nagel's algorithm will tell that. So okay, what time we should wait, until what time we should be waiting, so when we should go within a timeout. So that calculations we have did in a last class. We have taken a sample RTT and then estimated RTT, and we have calculated the timeout two into that particular timeout which we had taken. And again, we have discussed a Bison algorithm also. In a Bison algorithm, they will tell like that why do multiplication with an estimated RTT you are going to take. We will take the variance of a sample RTT itself, the maximum variance we will take, and then if you calculate the estimated RTT, that is enough, 2 is not needed. So Bison algorithm will tell like that. So the best one is on a Bison algorithm. Yesterday we had discussed for a retransmission. So these things we had discussed in our last classes. Now coming to the next, another one important concept is congestion. So how a congestion, what is a congestion first, and how a congestion control can be done, and how a congestion avoidance algorithms will be used, we'll discuss in this particular chapter. Now we'll go with the sharing of that particular PPT. Back here. One sec. Going to coming over here, right? Yeah, congestion control and resource allocation, both how a resource is also allocated. That yesterday we discussed the problem also, so that we had discussed what is the outline of this particular chapter, that is issues in a resource allocation, queuing disciplines, how a queuing can be done, then TCP congestion control, how a TCP congestion control will be done, and coming to next, we'll go with the congestion avoidance mechanism and QoS, quality of service. First, coming to the congestion control and resource allocation, in that when too many packets are containing for the same link, the queue overflows, packets get dropped, network is congested. Very simple. That I keep on telling you people, that assume that source and a destination is there in between one particular node. Assume one router itself is there. So it is having some queue capacity is there. Assume it can hold up to some 50 packets. We'll discuss like that, and from different other senders also. Why? Because router will be connected to many systems. So different senders, whoever are there, all senders is keep on sending a packets. Assume at that particular router, the capacity of the router is to store maximum 50 packets in a queue, and 50 packets are stored in a queue, assume, and the router is serving the first packet. Meanwhile, other packets is also coming. There is no space there where to keep that particular packets. What that router will do, it will drop the packets. Once the queue overflows, the packets will keep on dropped. That situation we'll call it as a congestion. Now network will be in a congested. So network should provide a congestion control mechanism to deal with such a situation. Now how we can deal with this particular situation? For example, I'll tell you one particular circle you take in any city, metropolitan cities. Assume that in that particular circle always a traffic jam will be there. So what is this, how you can control this particular traffic jam? If I ask you, you will tell, sir, any one traffic constable should be there in that particular circle, or we should adapt a traffic signals. Once we will adapt a traffic signals, or if traffic constable is there, automatically you will make a room to move the traffic in a right way, and no jam will be there. That's the best solution in a manual sense. That is in our daily traffic. Now coming to in our networks and all, how we can make this type of an arrangements. So where what type of traffic signals we can adapt in a computer networks. So to control that particular congestion. So that is the one important concept which we are going to learn. Coming to the next, congestion control and resource allocations. In the two sides of the same coin, both are, when you take two things, that is congestion control and resource allocation, both are like head and tail. How I will tell you. Assume that if I give you some 20 liters of a bucket, just for a sake I'll tell you, 20 liters of a bucket, when you open a tap, until 20 liters fill ups, there is no problem of a overflow. Am I right? Correct. Now assume to your friend I will give you some 5 liters of a bucket, and I will tell both of you, and I have given you the 20 liters of a bucket, and I will tell you both of you to go to the same type of a taps, that is same size of a taps, whatever is there, and I will tell switch on the taps. Then the 5 liters bucket will get filled first, and then overflow will occur. And what happens for a 20 liters? Still another 15 liters more time it will take. What means 3 times of the second person time is there for this particular person. That means till the time overflow will not occur. Now you can relate the congestion and both the resource allocation. For him, if I have given it, for other person also, if I have given a 20 liters of a bucket, then assume that if size resource is more, then automatically congestion will take a more time. Means congestion occurs in more time. That is, after all 20 liters fills up, then only. Then the next best example I will give you. Assume a 6 lanes road is there. Always a 6 lanes road is there. For example, in highways and all, traffic jam will be almost all less comparative to the city roads where a 6 lanes will not be there. And almost all in flyovers also traffic jam will be somewhat less. Why? Because their traffic signals is not at all needed. Where the road is congested and the more connectivities is there for that particular roads, in that particular areas the traffic jam will occur. If the resource allocation is good enough, if you adapt a good flyovers, everything there, then automatically no traffic jam will be there. Now assume how a flyovers will make your traffic to be controlled. Like that, if flyovers, if you consider as a resource, and automatically traffic jam will be controlled, that is congestion can be controlled. So in this way you can relate. Now you understood, I think, what is the link between the congestion control and a resource allocation in a network. That is, it's a two sides of the same coin. If the network takes an active role in allocating the resources, the congestion may be avoided. Yes, as I told you, no need for congestion control. Even if well equipped, means total good resources are there, no need, means traffic jam will never occur. If infrastructure is very good and flyovers are there in almost all in a city, and almost all the traffic jam will be less. So like this, you can consider the task. Coming to the next step, allocating resources with an precision is difficult. What do you mean by this? How to allocate a resource? This is a main problem. What do you mean by this? You can ask me, what do you mean by this? Assume I can't fix the resources size. Means resources are distributed throughout the network. That is a one big problem. It means, what do you mean by this? If you provide a more resources and all, the cost will be very high and you can't bear that. So allocating the resources with a precision means, if I allocate this resource, you may not use fully of that particular resource. Then the waste will be there in that particular resource, and you can't share that with any others. But if your resource can be shared, it is distributed throughout the network, and more than one person is sharing your resource, then it will be good. So in that sense. So on the other hand, we can always let the resources send as much data as they want. Sorry. On the other hand, we can always let the sources send as much data as they want. What do you mean by here? How much maximum data the source can send, that much thing means that much means permission should be there. Then recover from the congestion when it occurs. Easier approach, but it can be disruptive, because many packets may be discarded by the network before congestions can be controlled. Now, very important thing. What do you mean by this? Now I'll tell you like this. Okay, we'll make sources to send as much as data they want. I will allow. I will tell all senders, okay, you send as much as data you want. Once congestion occurs, later on we will see. But assume that when congestion occurs, until you recover that congestion, think how many packets will drop. So once the packets will drop, the retransmission of that packets has to be done. Why? Because TCP is a reliable protocol. So once that retransmission of a packet should be done, and assume that what more time it will take for a retransmission of a packet, then automatically the delay in sending overall process to the destination will become a more. Then automatically your network performance will be reduced. So then how we can make this part, means how we can solve this particular concept. Now, congestion control and resource allocations involve both hosts and network elements such as routers. Now, this is correct. You have to take not only the senders into the consideration, you have to take your destination also, and in between routers also into the consideration. If you know what is the capacity of your router, means what is the queue capacity of your router and what is the receiving capacity of your destination. Always I used to tell, assume that if your destination can catch only two balls, if you throw three balls, one ball will be always dropped. So there is no need to throw three balls, even though if you're so strong as a sender. So that is an important thing. So then what sender, even sender is so strong to send a bulk of data, he should first see what is the situation in a router, how the load is there for a router. Once studying that, then you should go with the destination. Is my destination can having a buffer or a capacity to take the packets what I am sending? So that is a one important concept. In a network elements, again, various queuing disciplines can be used to control the order in which packets get transmitted and which packets get dropped. You believe or not, once I'll tell you, queuing disciplines, I can't tell a single word like this. Different queuing methods will be used. There is a it's a queuing is in a big chapter and on a big field where different methods or different techniques of queues will be there. According to us, always if I tell queue, why sir is telling so much about a queue? You always think like that. Queue means FIFO or priority queue or an round robin queue. Only this will comes in your mind. But other types of queues is there. Gauss, you are going to adapt, and Poisson equations you are going to adapt in a queue, and active queue management is there, dynamic queue appliances is there. So different concepts will be there in a queuing where you can handle these queues some diplomatically. So that is a one queuing disciplines is very much important. Coming to next, at the host end, now coming to the destination, the host end, the congestion control mechanism bases how fast the sources are allowed to send a packets. What do you mean by this? How fast the host send means here at a source and a destination. How fast a sender can allowed to send an packets, and how fast the receiver can receive the packets. So that is a one important concept which will be taken in 2 points is there. That is in a routers how a queue disciplines will be maintained, and in host that means in source and a destination how a packets is allowed to send. Coming to next issues in resource allocation. And now come to the what are the issues are there in resource allocation constraints. Network model. First, packet switched network we'll see. We consider resource allocation in a packet switched network or internet consisting of multiple links and switches or routers. Now, what do you mean by this? Actually, one thing I'll tell you. What do you mean by resource allocation, especially in a network? What is the buffers? What maximum buffers any of your routers and systems can have? Or then how many, what is the capacity of the bandwidth your channel or your multiple links can send? Based on that, that actually resource allocation means that is a resource allocation. So if your bandwidth is very good and your channel is fully utilizing that particular bandwidth, and your systems or nodes, whatever is there, is well equipped with a buffers, means lot of space is there to store the packets, then automatically your network performance will be good. In such an environment, a given source may have more than enough capacity on the immediate outgoing link to send a packet. But somewhere in the middle of a network, assume in coming somewhere in a topology in the middle of a network, its packets encounter a link that is being used by many different traffic sources. This is important. Okay, until your channel, okay, not a problem. Until BMS IT, assume that I am using an internet. Okay, and I'm chatting with my friend who is using some mobile internet somewhere in his house. Assume is there in Hyderabad. Now, what I'll do, I will send the packets, everything. We are having a lizard line from a convergent of India. the ISP provider. So ours will be first assumed for a sake. I'll tell you, from a data center, the packet will move very fastly to the ISP provider. From there again, the packet should face the public internet. Once it faces the public internet, so it's not a lazy line. So there, multiple users are using that particular channel or that particular software. For example, as I'm doing a chatting with a WhatsApp. How many are using a WhatsApp at a time? How many are chatting within a WhatsApp at a time? Can you imagine? If we are imagining like that, assume in India only, how many at that particular time they are chatting using a WhatsApp? If I ask you this particular question, you will tell sir lakhs together. When a lakhs together are using that particular server, what will be the traffic there? Imagine that all the traffic that means is moving through the server of on a WhatsApp, right? So that what is the capacity of that server to hold that traffic? Then what is the bandwidth of that links, whatever is moving? So how much the capacity is going to reach that particular server? Now, I think I'm telling you a real time situation how your bandwidth and link capacity will play the role. Coming to the next, that is a network model. Packet switcher network. You see the example now here. Assume that source 1 is there and source 2 is there, and both source 1 and source 2 are using 100 Mbps Ethernet. They are using Ethernet. Assume coming to the router, and queue will be there. Assume here 100 Mbps of an Ethernet using only two systems. That is 50 Mbps, 50 Mbps approximately distributed. Assume, just for a sake, I will tell you. Now it will come to the router. Now assume in our NS2 also we did this. But here from router to the destination only 1.5 Mbps of the connection is there. That is peer-to-peer connection is there. Now here 50 Mbps from source 1 and 50 Mbps from source 2, that is total 100 Mbps is coming to this particular router. Assume that the queue capacity is, and I may tell you like this, some 20 Mbps capacity is there, queue capacity is there, just for a sake, I'll tell you. 100 Mbps is coming, but 20 Mbps is there, 20 Mbps it will store. If more than that, it's going to drop. Here, boy, because you're only 1.5 Mbps only, it can send at a time to the destination. Now this is a real time situation, and we have did already the program on this, and we have calculated how many packets has been dropped in this particular criteria. Coming to the next, the network model with connectionless flows. How a connectionless flows will be there. For much of our discussion, we assume that the network is essentially connectionless with a connection oriented service implemented in the transport layer that is running on the end host. I repeat, we assume that the network is essentially connectionless. Whatever a public internet, whatever your IP is facing, that is a connectionless network. With a connection oriented service implemented on connectionless, a connection oriented service has been implemented by your transport layer with end to end hosts. Now, we need to qualify the term connectionless because our classification of networks has been either connectionless or a connection oriented. Same doubt will come to your mind also. I told in beginning there will be two types of networks. One is a connectionless, one is a connection oriented. Now I am telling connectionless is there in a network layer, means in your IP will follow that, but your transport layer will follow the connection oriented. Based on your connection list. Then you will be in a doubt how to will be used. In particular, the assumption that all datagrams are completely independent in a connectionless network is too strong. Yes, for your IP protocol, I will tell you very quick. For your IP protocol, each one packet is an individual packets. It never bother whether it is of that which process it is. It never bothers. So it has to send to destination. It will follow the forwarding table. It will send to the destination. But your transport layer is not like that. Transport layer will always works with end-to-end process. Assume that some 50 packets are there of one particular message, means all 50 packets should be within a same process, and all that 50 packets 1 to 50 should come in a sequence to the destination in 1 to 50. Until then the process will be opened. So your TCP should know on which particular way all these 50 packets should go. Now it is connection oriented. In this way, the two things will be taken into the consideration. The datagrams are certainly switched independently, but it is usually the case that a stream of datagrams between a particular pair of hosts flow through a particular set of routers. Assume the second part of the sentence here, what I told previously, same thing. Yes, the datagrams are certainly switched independently. We know that, but your TCP will keep track that which is a source, which is a destination in between, how many set of routers it has to pass. Then it is connection oriented. Now, issues in a resource allocations will continue, connectionless flows. Now come back here. Assume source 1, source 2 and source 3 are there. Source 1 and source 2 are connected to router 1. Come to source 3, again another router. But these two routers are connected to another one router. From that router, the destination one another destination. Multiple flows passing through a set of routers you can see here. Why? Because multiple flows here. Here S1 and S2 two are there. So that's why two flows here. And two flows can we go to the destination. But here only one connection is there. So one flow. So in this way, that example can be taken into the considerations. Now, coming to the connection less flows. One of the powers of the flow abstraction is that flows can be defined in different uh, granularities. For example, a flow can be host to host, that I used to tell always. Here only IP will deal that. Have the same source destination host address, or process to process. Have the same source destination port pairs. Now TCP will be there in this particular part. IP protocol will be there in a above part. In the later case, a flow is essentially the same as a channel, as we have been using that term throughout this book. The reason we introduce a new term is that a flow is visible to the routers inside the network. Now, always we should see how a flow or a load of the load will be there in a routers in between also. Coming to the next thing, that is, because multiple related packets flow through router, we know that it sometimes makes sense to maintain some state information for each flow, information that can be used to make resource allocation decisions about the packets that belong to the flow. This state is sometimes called soft state. Note down this. This is very important point in a short notes. They can ask you what is soft state. Soft state is nothing but the router, whatever is there, the router will maintain a state of information. What do you mean by state of information? How many flows, how many process of flows is there in me? Means it's going from different users or different sources, it's coming. So information will be there in a routers. So your router will take a decision that which one on priority for which one the resource allocation is important. So that is called as a soft state. The main difference between soft state and a hard state is that soft state will not always be explicitly created and removed by signal. But hard case you have to do. Coming to the next. Soft state presents a middle ground between a purely connectionless network that maintains no state at the routers and a purely connection oriented network that maintains a hard state at the routers. So your TCP will use a hard state and your IP will use a soft state. In general, the correct operation of a network does not depend on a soft state being present, but when a packet happens to belong to a flow for which the router is currently maintaining a soft state. So here, what router will do actually, one thing I'll tell very clearly. In real time example, if you take the router, whatever is it, assume it has been connected to some four senders, and each sender is sending a different types of packets. One is video, one is audio, one is assume chatting, or one is file, like that. Now, whatever packets are coming over here, that particular packets, whatever router means your router is facing, will have some four flows. Now, it will maintain some four flows or state of informations. Now, in this, whatever is there means it will decide which one is to be prioritized. So that is the one happens to belong to a flow for which the router is currently maintaining a soft state. Then the router is better able to handle the packet. There it can handle easily that particular packet. Coming to the next taxonomy. So router centric versus host centric. Now one question arises. Either we should depend on source and a destination, our network, or our concept of sending a data packet should depend on source and destination. Either it should depend on a router in between. This question arises always. That's why we'll call it as a router centric versus the host centric. In a router centric, assume in a router centric, our BMS IT and all in a router centric. Right. In a router centric design, each router takes a responsibility for deciding when packets are forwarded and selecting which packets are to be dropped, as well as for informing the host that are generating the network traffic, how many packets they are allowed to send. Actually, to see, this is one of the best method. That is, your router will tell the sender that, see, my load is this much, you send only this much of a packets to me, and this much of a packets will be sent to your destination. And entire traffic will be maintained by your router as a centric. And your router will track your packets and it knows that which packet to be sent in a priorities. Next, in a host-centric design, the end host, as I told you, that source and a destination, observe the network conditions, how many packets they are successfully getting through the network, and adjust their behavior accordingly. Assume what is this type of a network. So your source is there and the destination is there. In between router is there. Assume your source and destination will observe your entire network traffic and they will adjust themselves to that particular network. So this is another best method which is called as a host centric. Note that these two groups are not mutually exclusive. So this, whatever the things means, they are not purely exclusive of the next. Reservation based versus feedback based. What is this reservation based versus feedback based resource? That is, in a reservation based system, some entity, example, the end host asks the network for a certain amount of capacity to be allocated for a flow. Each router then allocates enough resources, buffers, and percentage of the link's bandwidth to satisfy this request. If the request cannot be satisfied at some router because doing so could overcommit its resources, then the router rejects the reservation. What is this reservation? We'll make some reservation in a bandwidth, we'll make some reservation in a router, resource allocations, buffers, everything, will reserve it. So once it has been reserved, automatically that much max means based on that much, the packets will be keep on sending from source to the destination. Now here what happens, assume that in between some routers will cannot offer you that much reservation of a bandwidth or a buffers. Why? Because it's already engaged with some other traffic. Then automatically the router will reject the reservation. So this is the constraint in a reservation. In a reservation, you are not the only person who is there. Correct? No. So when it has to be done, there should be some space to reserve. If all those resource has been engaged, how reservation can be done? It can't be done. Next. in a other type, feedback based. In a feedback based approach, the end host being sending a data without first receiving any capacity and then adjust their sending rate according to the feedback they receive. This feedback can either an explicit, that is, a congested router sends a please slow down message to the host, or it can be implicit, the end host adjusts its sending rate according to the externally observable behavior of the network, such as packet loss. Very simple. What is this here? You are assume that your sender is there. Four senders are connected to one router. The all four senders will start sending the data to the router. So they will start like this: two will become four packets, four will become eight will become 16 packets, 16 will become 32 packets, like that. Now assume 8 means 8 fours are 32. 32 means 32 fours are. That much input is coming to the router. At one stage, a congestion will occur, means a congestion problem will occur. Then what your router will do, your router will tell your senders, all senders, a message will be sent, please slow down your uh, flow. Then suddenly what it will do, there is a different techniques for that. Suddenly, usually, generally what the senders will do, they will cut down their window. Which point it will cut down, it depends on algorithm. Some algorithms will make 0, window size will become 0, again it will start from a fresh. So like that, it depends. Coming to the next thing, in a taxonomy, window based versus rate based, that I am telling you. Window based, window advertisement is used within the network to reserve the buffer space. You know, in a TCP header, advertisement field will place a very much important role. So what is this advertisement window? Your that end means whatever your sender is sending and whatever your router is doing this, your destination, based on that a buffer spaces will be set. So advertisement will be given, so I'm having this much of capacity. Control senders behavior using a rate based means whatever a traffic is flowing, so you will control your senders, please cut down your flow rate, how many bit per seconds the receiver or network is able to observe. So automatically your sender has to come down with that particular rate. Evaluation criteria. How evaluation can be done of your particular network. Effective resource allocation, how you can do this particular thing. A good starting point for evaluating the effectiveness of a resource allocation scheme is to consider the two principal metrics of networking: throughput and delay. Underline this. These words will make your entire network more effective. Your entire network, you will tell, see, this network is not good, this network is not working correctly. Something you will think buffer time is more, I don't want this, I'll go to Airtel, I'll go to Geo, and I will change to that broadband, this broadband. All the things will depend on these two factors, that is throughput and a delay. Now, as I told in the beginning itself, what is the throughput, right? What's the throughput? Even though your bandwidth is there, at that particular time, what amount of data your source has been transferred to the destination, and average of that is called as an throughput, average throughput. It will tell you that either you are utilizing your bandwidth up to the mark or not. So what amount of the maximum bandwidth you are utilizing, that is throughput. Delay is what is the time requirement to send from this the data 1 MB of a file from source to destination. Not only 1 MB, data file size from source to destination based on your bandwidth. Even though if congestion and all occurs, retransmission will be there, then delay will become more. If delay becomes more, time taken automatically more means, then automatically buffering will become more in your destination side. So this is a evaluation process. Clearly, we want as much throughput and as little delay as possible. If delay is less and throughput is good, your network performance is very good. Unfortunately, these goals are often somewhat at odds with each other, especially in real-time example. If you take this thing will not be like that. Your throughput will be less and delay will be more in some burst times, some particular times and all. So how to manage this? One sure way for a resource allocation algorithm to increase the throughput is to allow as many packets into the network as possible, so as to drive the utilization of all the links up to the 100%. So what you have to do now? So what the resource allocation, how algorithm, how it should be there here to increase the throughput? You should tell your senders as many packets you want you send, where 100% of your bandwidth, the link bandwidths can be utilized. We would do this to avoid the possibility of a link becoming idle, because an idle link necessarily hurts the throughput. Okay, what you told is correct. Now, what is another problem? If the 100% all senders are sending full load to the network, congestion will occur. Then how to avoid that? Delay will be more. The problem with this strategy is that increasing the number of packets in a network also increases the length of the queues. Keep in your mind, when rush will become more, queue length will become more. A cinema tickets, cinema is very good. First day you will go, then automatically queue length will be very more, rush will be very more, congestion will be more. Correct? No. The queues at each router, longer queues will be there. In turn, many packets are delayed longer in the network. So, are you seeing here how beautiful these sentences are? To utilize, to increase the throughput, you have to utilize all your links very good. Means 100% link capacity should be utilized. For that, what you have to do? Your senders has to send a more packets through the links. Okay, good enough. You are utilizing now, then automatically queues of the routers will become lengthy more and delay will be more. And how to solve this? This is a evaluation thing. Now, to describe this relationship, some network designers have proposed using the ratio of throughput to delay as a metric for evaluating the effectiveness of a resource allocation scheme. Then what you have to do, if what maximum throughput will be there with the delay as a constraint. If delay increases, throughput also means throughput is increasing, delay also is not good. So where a delay will be constrained with which throughput point, that is important. So how comparing you can do this. This ratio is sometimes referred to as the power of the network. So your entire power of a network is throughput by delay. This is a one effectiveness which you are going to do. Observe carefully. Now your throughput is going to increase here, right? Right? So at that point, whatever is there, this is optimal load your network can take. So once it will comes down again like this. So this is a function load. Now again, it should come. Then fair resource allocations, how you can do fair resource allocations, that we will discuss in a next coming class. So I think with different algorithms will be there here, right? We should discuss this, giving disciplines and very important concepts these are, especially in a network areas. TCP congestion controls, later on we'll discuss how a congestion control mechanisms will be there. Yes, slow start, everything is there. Good. Avoidance mechanism. Okay. So we'll back in tomorrow's, not tomorrow, there will be no class. Tomorrow, day after, means next Monday, we'll have a class. Right? And stop this particular share. Now, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Listening. Listening? Right.